Okay, so I'm back in Blue Sofa Studios with Steve Hawk.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How's it going with you?
Good, Mickey, good.
Okay, so you are originally from Scottsdale, right?
Yeah, born and raised. Born and raised in Scottsdale.
Do you still live there?
Yes, I do. I live in my, I rent off of my folks. I live there. I've been in and out of the tri-state area. I lived in Ohio for about 6 years when I was in college, and moved back to this area when I had to. You know, it was one of those things where I tried to go out there and stay out there, but money was tight and things changed and life happened, and I decided, it was time to move back. A lot of friends and family convinced me to do so about 10 years ago.
Okay. You've been playing music for a while now, since like the late 90s?
Yeah, actually the early 90s.
Okay.
I mean, I've been playing for people since 98, I'd say. I've been playing guitar, though, for friends, annoyingly. Back when I was 13 in 1993, I would just sit on my porch and play the same songs over and over again, and whoever happened to be passing by. It's just neat now because I'm still doing the same thing in the same house, but I have better songs.
Right.
Newer songs. And
right.
But yeah, I've been playing since 1993. I didn't get the guts to play for anybody until the last day of school my senior year. I had a project to do, and I took an old Irish ballad for my English class, and it was, I don't know, I can't remember if it was a poem or what, but I took it to an old Irish, I put it to an old Irish melody and played it for the class, and people were really impressed that I did that.
Cool.
And I just did it more or less for a project, not to show off or anything, but I had at that point been playing for 4 or 5 years, but just didn't think I was any good.
Oh, okay. Well, which brings my next question. When was the moment you knew that this is kind of what you wanted to do with your life?
That's a really good question, because you have a bunch of different moments and you sway and you ebb and you flow. I can honestly say, and my own mindset has changed over the years too, because when you start to play guitar and you start to feel like you're different than somebody else as far as that goes, because I grew up in just a small town where at age 13, I guarantee none of my other friends were playing guitar. So at that point in my life, it was, I want to impress some friends, 13 years old. And then when you get older, it's, I want to do this for the chicks. And then you realize when that doesn't actually work, you start to do it for yourself.
Right.
I can honestly say I've always wanted to play for people. I never really knew what level I would ever take it to or get to as far as that goes. I've never seen myself as being able to be a rock star, so to speak, but I'm going to take it as far as I can go because it's fun. It's what I love to do, and people seem to enjoy the music, so I'm going to keep playing it for people as long as they do.
Right on. Who are your early influences?
Well, that too has been a lot of change. I grew up, I always tell this story. My grandfather used to teach me how to sing when I was 3. We'd go on trips and he and I would harmonize. He was in a barbershop quartet. Well, I shouldn't say barbershop quartet because you associate that with the straps or the stripes and the goofy hats. Mm-hmm. But no, they were in a gospel choir back in the 50s and 60s, and a couple guys from his church. So they'd sit around the table and they'd sing. And I remember music was always in my home. People around my mom's piano. Older strangers, well, they weren't strangers, but they were friends of family, and they'd come in and, holidays, people would gather around and sing. 4th of July, my family's large, they'd sing up at my cabin, things like that. But I'd have to say, I really didn't turn the tides. I grew up listening to oldies. I loved oldies in my junior high years. I had a lot of influence from my brothers who were back from college in the early 90s. They had a lot of the alternative taste. And they brought back bands that I had never heard of because I wouldn't have because of Pittsburgh radio. Pittsburgh radio was, they brought you the best they could, and they had some great radio stations like The Revolution.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was like pre-X, pre-105.9X.
Yeah.
But I listened to that back in 93. My brothers introduced me to a lot of British bands, and I got into the Ramones, and I got into more punk rock stuff too. A lot of my friends were into things like the Misfits, Bad Religion. I grew fond of Green Day, their Dookie album was just probably one of the best albums I've ever experienced in my
classic.
life, at least in junior high. But I had other bands like the Smiths, the Smithereens. My brothers would just bring home all this music, and I would try it all on their dime.
Right.
My brother had like one of those CD music, clubs where he'd just get new CDs once a week or something. But anyway, sorry this is taking so long,
That's
but
okay.
there's so many influences to talk about. I'd have to say I really turned the tide for the better in college when I was on my own, and I got to experience a lot of things for myself. Social Distortion, by far, is one of the best bands in my opinion. And I shouldn't say that because there's so many good bands out there, but I'd have to say that they were the ones that spoke to me the most. Their simple lyrics, and they're down to earth.
It's funny you said that, because I hear some of that influence in your music.
Well, you can't get away from that. Whenever I first started to notice that I was getting quote-unquote fans, I would sit around in college at like fraternity parties, my fraternity. I'd sit on my front porch and I'd play songs that were familiar. And the fun thing about that was I had songs that I had written. I started writing songs, and keeping songs, I should say, back in 1998 when I went off to college. I was just a songwriting fiend. Can't say that I play a lot of those. Those were kind of like what I call dummy songs. When you're just learning the craft, you just kind of try things out. But it wasn't until I really attached myself to them that I really began to find passion and skill at writing, because every artist, when you are an artist, whether it's visual, because that's what I was in college, I was an art major. I've learned a lot about art and craft, and a lot of times when you begin to do something and you aren't really good at it, and you don't know how to express it or to do quote unquote the craft, you mimic people. To get better, and you learn from what they've done. And that was musically who I mimicked for the longest time for some of my earlier songs. Well, I shouldn't even say that. My earlier songs were kind of folky. I don't really play most of them anymore, and quite honestly, I don't really remember how to play a lot of them anymore because it's been so long. But I started to get noticed around the year 2000, whenever I really started to write like them. And Mike Ness came out with that solo album in '99, which blew my head out of the water. I just loved that. I've never listened to old school country, and when he came out with those two, those really changed a lot of my songwriting. And I would play a lot of the Social D songs for people at college, and they wouldn't even know who they were. Right. And I got away with that too, because I could mess up and kind of do my own thing. And they wouldn't even know the difference. So it was kind of cool. But then I just kind of went with that.
Okay. So over the years, you've been in various incarnations of a band called Forgotten Nobody?
Yes. It's been a while. My last attempt at that was from 2005 to 2008. It started out in college. I just wanted to form a band. And it's funny, I just found the tape of that the other day. It was just me and a drummer. His name was Troy. And he was from the Black Hawk area. And he and I just one weekend, he was a freshman when I was a sophomore, and he lived across the hall from me, and he'd hear me play, and he'd come across the hall with his drum pad. And he always wanted to make music, and I came around to it. It took me a while to really say, because I really didn't know what all was entailed in being in a band at that time. I just knew I liked to play and get my music out there. But we formed one in college, 2002, for about a year and a half. And that's really when I got the bug to play out. We played about once a month for about 3 or 4 months at a place called Mangoes in Alliance, Ohio. And we would play a bunch of our cover songs, and I'd play a few of my originals. And by that point, it was just Troy and I. We picked up a bass player. His name was Steve Young. He was from Ohio, and he had a passion for Social Distortion and Johnny Cash, like I did. And so we always tried to play some covers of that, and we'd just goof around and have a good time and play music. And we played out at my fraternity house, and we played, like I said, at Mangoes. We did one gig in Canton, and we were pretty good at that time, but we didn't know what to really do. We were just doing it for fun. But I'll tell you what, we must have had some talent because people came.
Right.
People came, and they kept coming every time we played. We broke up, though, whenever we all went our separate ways. I graduated first. Troy was a year younger than me, and Steve was 2 or 3 years younger than me. And whenever I stuck around an extra year just because I kind of Van Wildered it. But I stuck out there for a little while and tried. When I moved back home in 2004, I went to a wedding where I ran into another guy that I know had been playing music. His name was Troy Sanafano, and met at a friend's wedding and talked music and said, "Let's do this." I was feeling the bug. It had been a year and a half, 2 years since I had played in a band, and I went through a few things, and I really wanted to get some more music out there. And he said, "Sure." Hell of a bass player, lots of talent, lots of ideas, and he helped me grow. We played from 2005. His old college buddy Jeff Bucci, who's now in a cover band called the Lava Game. They play all around the Pittsburgh area, but I think that's the name of the band. But the three of us, we got along really well for 3 years, and then we just, I don't know what happened, just kind of grew apart musically, or what our passions had changed, or whatever. I kind of felt like we needed to keep playing shows. They didn't want to until we had another album, and I didn't think it was about necessarily having a brand new product. I personally thought that we needed to play all over the place. So a big thing, though, a big major issue with that, though, was the distance. They live up in Cranberry. I live in Scottsdale. And it got to be too much. And I wasn't going to ask two guys to come down to my place. You know, it just wasn't working that way. So 2008, our last show is at Mr. Small's. And we always thought we were going to get back together. And we joke around once in a while when we do speak about a reunion show. But we've all kind of gone our own ways, and I discovered that this solo thing has been just as popular and just as successful.
Right.
So I'm taking the old songs that I wrote. They were all mine anyway. So I took all the old songs from the incarnations, so to speak, of those bands, and I just started playing by myself, just solo acoustic, and people seem to like that too. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Cool. What's your writing process?
Well, a lot of my friends would joke about it and say I'd have to have a broken heart, but a lot of my friends say, "Oh, Steve's got a girlfriend now. He's not going to be writing any good music for a long time," and that partially true. I mean, there's always a lot of truth to that sort of thing. The process, though, I don't just get. It's been different every time. A lot of times I'll sit down with a guitar and just get the basic melody of the riffs first. A lot of times I've gotten up in the middle of the night with songs flowing through my head, a melody that I have no idea what it is. And
that's common in songwriters. I've heard a lot of people tell me that. Yeah.
I've heard that too, but for the most part, they just come to me. I'm always singing goofy songs, and I'm always, I'm changing lyrics to songs that are already out there to have a little fun with, people who are in the car or whatever. Right. And that sort of thing is just something that has been very, it just comes to me. Right. But yes, I usually together I write the lyrics, the melody, and the riffs of the guitar all at one. They're all just kind of melded together, and I think that's, to me, one reason why they sound, they just, I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah, it kind of flows. It just
yeah.
Okay, well, tell me about Some Sort of Sacrifice.
Well, is that your favorite, or is that just you never really?
I really like all the stuff that I've heard from you.
Okay, well,
they all have different aspects that I like about them.
Some Sort of Sacrifice. That was one song that just happened in seconds. I've had a couple songs that I've recently pulled out and finished that have been stuck with me for 10 years that I just never had a direction to go with. Some Sort of Sacrifice is one of those songs that just came out of nowhere, and the lyrics came down on paper so quickly, because it took a little bit of this and a little bit of that in different aspects. It started out, I have to think right now what part of the song I wrote first. I think it was I love the flower in your hair and that blue dress too. And like those things, I've always kind of, when I was single at the time, and I'm longing when I'm single. I'm happy, but you can't help if there's someone that comes along and you have a crush on them, or I had just gotten out of a bad relationship, and I had some interests in different girls here and there, and it was one of those. The song has like that longing feeling, and I think I even say that in one or two of the lines. But there's different photos, if you could imagine, different images that are in the song. And one of the images comes from whenever I played in Jeanette for the first time at the Keynote Cafe down there. And I was walking across the street for the very first time, and it was quiet. It was like February. And the church bells were ringing in the distance, and it reminded me of kind of Scottsdale. Scottsdale has that feel too, where there's always chimes going off, or church bells, and I just kind of would have these images go through my head, and it was kind of like a call and answer type thing with my writing process with that one. I'd have an image coming through my head, and then I'd have an answer to the next lyric. I wrote that mainly because people need to know how difficult it can be to be a musician.
I was going to say that really comes through in the song. About being a musician, yeah.
It's a sacrifice. That's what the sacrifice is about. And people who live their daily lives make, $75,000 a year, who have their swimming pools, their inside movie theaters, whatever. They don't understand that life because they think it's ridiculous sometimes too. At the same time, though, they'll always go out to a concert.
Right.
They'll always go see their favorite artist. Exactly. But what you don't understand is that favorite artist was just like people like me, just like people like the musicians that I play with. We played a benefit show this past weekend for down in Scottsdale. It was actually for my brother, and I'm not here to plug that sort of thing. My brother's daughter has leukemia, and we got 4 or 5 different acts together, and we were all so different, but it's all the same.
Right.
They all love just playing on the street. In a parking lot under a makeshift stage, because that's what it is. It's that feeling, it's that spontaneity. Right. It's there's something exciting about, I have no idea what's going to happen at this show.
Right.
I don't even know if my guitar is going to work tonight.
Right.
I've had that happen. I've played good venues like Club Cafe. I went up and I played Club Cafe. The last time I was at Club Cafe, I played with a great band, some friends of mine called Household Stories, and I think they're from the Greensburg area.
Yeah,
here.
I've heard them.
But right when I was about to go on stage, the batteries in my guitar ran out, and I couldn't, without that battery pack, you can't get that electric sound coming out. So a buddy of mine who drove up with me on the way, he's like, what can I do to help? And I said, can you go to, I said, go out to, I sent him out down the street. We were on the south side there, so he went running through the crowded street on a Friday night on a mission for batteries, and I stalled, and it was funny. But those are the things that happen. But that song is all about that sacrifice. I can't tell you how many times I've had to lose relationships because of that. People that I've dated who don't see things the same way I do. Why aren't you making enough money? Why aren't you doing this? And it's just kind of like, because my passions are elsewhere, and that's the sacrifice that I've made, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I figure there's as far as the love thing goes, there's always somebody out there for you. There's got to be that way, because I see people together in relationships that probably shouldn't be,
right.
And but I mainly wrote the song not to talk about the love aspect, but more or less to show people what it's really truly like inside and out.
Well, you say it really well.
Thank you.
Well said, really. Okay, well, let's talk about As I Get Older. This is a really relatable song, I think, for most people. You sing about how we tend to get jaded with life the older we get. One of the lyrics is trading risk for Ice Cold Fear, and That's How I Gave Up on Me.
Hmm.
That really spoke to me. I think that's kind of a universal thing. You put that really well.
Well, thank you. The funny thing about that was a reflection song, and you might even be able to catch it while you listen to it. I wasn't in a bad place when I wrote that. I wasn't at a horrible time in my life, which a lot of times, even if, and it's all relative, somebody might think that your life is okay, but deep inside you don't feel like it is. I mean, I hate to bring this up now, but look at the whole Robin Williams thing. How could a man like that take his own life? But nobody knows. You are the only one that knows what's going on, or sometimes. But I wrote that because I was single at the time, and I thought back on the people that I've hurt and the people that have hurt me, and I came to the conclusion that a lot of times it was because it was my own fault. And that was one of those songs where it was a coming out to realize type song.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a redemption song, because you're singing about what it was like and how you sort of came out of it.
Yeah, and everybody has that, and there's some people. There's a girl that I'm training at work right now, and I shouldn't talk about her personal life, but she's going through a horrible divorce, and everybody goes through things. Life happens, and you've got to figure out a way to cope. And of course the music was easy for me, but I want to be able to be there for other people to realize that too. There are lines in that song that when I wrote it, it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that came out of my brain. And it does go with the rest of my repertoire, but at the same time, I don't like slow songs anymore like I once did, and I like to break away because right now, a lot of my songs, you only get to hear them live. And why would you want to sit there and put people to sleep with a slow song? At the same time, though, that's one of those songs that I can't tell you how many people, when they've heard it, they're like, wow, I'm going through that right now.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's kind of a universal,
well,
easily relatable.
I never realized it would be, but I'm glad it is.
And most songwriters do. They think that, well, this is coming from me. I don't know if you're going to be relating to it, but they're surprised at how kind of universal it is.
Sure.
What's coming out of them. So, yeah, that's the good thing about music. There's crickets chirping at the end of that song. What's the significance of that? Or is there a significance to that?
That's funny because that's one of my favorite parts of that recording. And RJ's currently working on mastering that song right now with I've Got That and a few other songs that I'm putting together for an EP here as soon as I get my act together and finally get moving with it. And it's one of those things that the songs are always there. It's just life keeps happening. But to answer your question, I was recording at Schoolhouse Recordings. Dan Blake, who's a very talented musician and an artist in his own with recording people, we were up in his room and he hadn't remodeled his studio yet. And this was the first time I had recorded in a long time. I think it was November of 2011. And it just was one of those fall nights where like the animals were loud outside and the air was clear and we just happened to record. And I can't think if it was him or if it was me, but it was one of those things that as we just let the last bit of it resonate, like we all just noticed it at the same time. The crickets were there singing to us.
Right.
And
nice.
I was just like, is there any way? And I can't, like I said, I can't remember if it was my idea or his, but we more or less said we have to bring that out in that recording because it was one of those just natural.
It fits too.
It did.
It does.
It did, and that's what we all thought too.
Cool.
You're the first person to ever bring up the crickets as far as the recording goes.
I listen. Glutton for Punishment's a pretty straightforward song. Again, this one's pretty relatable too. I think for just about everybody. It's sort of an angry song, but it resonates for anyone who's been in a failed relationship, which is, again, just about everybody.
Well, what's funny about that is nobody knows this, but it's not about a girl.
Really?
It is not about a girl. I wrote that. That's one of my oldest songs. I used to play this with the original Forgotten Nobody back in the early 2000s. I wrote that one. That was one of those songs that came out of my Social Distortion listening era. And it was one where, like, at the time I was sort of mimicking and not mimicking, but I was trying to create my own. And hopefully it does that. I don't ever want to be too much like another musician or an artist, because I am only myself.
Right.
But I got into an incident at college with a couple guys, and one of them, they were out drinking, good friends of mine, and I was studying, and I ended up wrecking this guy's car.
Ooh.
And I was sober, he was not, and it turned out being this huge legal thing. Well, that stuck with me for a while. And it was the first adversity I had found at college, because a lot of people liked me. I didn't try and step on toes. I didn't try and create issues. But these guys all turned on me, and they were living right in the door next to me. So like that's where the line's like, I hear you talk about me behind the walls. I see you laughing when I take my fall.
Okay.
Like a lot of that stuff comes from just having to, like, I'd walk outside of my dorm room and just like, part of me was sad that I couldn't hang out anymore, but part of me was just trying to like get away from them because it hurt so bad that just hearing them talk about me and stuff. And
Sure.
it was a bad experience. So that whole song was written about that, and there ended up being a subpoena involved and things like that. It was really a nasty
What did I get
situation.
that one wrong?
Well, no. Well, that's the thing though, and that's why I like doing what I do, because
Yeah.
I like to tell a story, and it's a lot more fun whenever people don't really know what it's about.
Right.
And I wrote that story with the intention of it sounding like a broken love song.
Oh, okay.
I did that on purpose.
Oh, good. I'm glad you said I don't feel as stupid
No,
now.
well, I don't ever intend to make people feel stupid. But I wrote that as a hook. That's kind of like a hook to get people involved. Oh man, what happened in that relationship? Geez, did she stab him or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, it's not about a girl whatsoever.
Oh, okay. Secrets revealed, folks. Okay. Was this song easier to write because of like a strong emotion? If you have a strong emotion about a song, does that make it easier to write for you?
Quite honestly, I can't remember writing that one. That was one that, as the years went on, it just kind of came along like a little brother. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I wrote that, and I'm sure there were a lot of angry feelings and emotions, and you can tell in some of those lyrics. You know, lies over lies over lies. You know, like those aren't nice words. You know, those aren't good feelings, and.
Sure.
And I know that whenever I was writing the song, there were some things. But that song developed too, and I would like to thank the guys in my most recent Forgotten Nobody. We played that one a lot on stage. And the way that I play it now, the acoustic version, is kind of like an adaptation of what we mutated that to. And so that was one of those songs that developed over years, but I still play it because now I tend to play songs where people are like, that song, what was that Glutton for Punishment? Man, that's a cool song.
Yeah, that's got a great hook. The whole
well,
Glutton
thank
for
you.
Punishment.
And, you know, I don't know if they're cool songs or not. I just enjoy singing and playing them and writing. And if people like it and can relate to it, great, you know.
Exactly. I heard you do Heartsick in the Basement at Deviate a couple years ago. And you introduced the song as something you wrote, not something you actually did.
I have to put that disclaimer.
Yeah,
on.
this is not just about a guy who's like pining away for somebody who dumped him for someone else. It's about a guy who actually took some action of the criminal kind about it. It's creepy, but it's a fun song to listen to.
My
How's this come
ex-girlfriend hated that song. And for rightful reason, because she had a bad heart. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. What was your question? I kind of got lost in that.
How did that? I gotta know how that one came about.
Misfits. Saturday Night. The song Saturday Night by the Misfits was... I was listening to Famous Monsters at the time, and I was never growing up listening to them. I never grew up listening to the Misfits, but I got attached to them whenever in my punk rock era, my passion for it developed. That was the song that I kind of... that and a lot of Johnny Cash stuff. Johnny had a way of writing songs that were relatable yet horribly wrong. And my intention with this song was to write a song that sounded like a love song, but it was actually those feelings pining away at somebody until the very end. And there are times when I play that song and people are just like, you can always hear the crickets. You know, like, oh my God, did he really do this? Did he really tie up his girlfriend's?
Should I be
tie up his
scared?
girlfriend and kill her new lover? I mean, but that's the fun part about songwriting. I can tell stories, and I've always been into fantasy, and I've always been into songwriting for the aspect of being able to escape the real world for a while. Would I really kill somebody? No. I would hope not. I mean, I would hope I was
Johnny
never
Cash sang that song, I shot a man and it was just to see him die.
Yeah. It's dark stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's the fun part about that. That was one of those songs that as it was developing, I'd stop at certain places and giggle. Man, I can't believe this is happening.
Was it an evil laugh?
No, you know what? It was, well, that one came about, a lot of songs that I write come about through conversations that I have. And that one was one that I wrote for the second incarnation of Forgotten Nobody. My friend and I dated a girl in Canton, Ohio, and she was significantly younger than me. And I would go over and I would hang out with her, and we were kids, we'd fool around and watch movies and fool around some more, and her parents hated me. At least even if they didn't, they sure as hell acted like it. And they treated me, I felt like I was always in the wrong place when I was there. It was just one of those things. And so my friend, Troy, the bass player, and I, a lot of my songs recently came from conversations I had with him. Like our one that was on WDVE when we played live, it was one called 19 to 26. That came about from a conversation about girls, but that's for another interview. This one came about how we were in between songs and we just got to BSing about. We were in Troy's basement. And he just got to talking about how in high school he used to make out with this girl, and they felt like they'd have to hide from his parents and stuff. And I said that's kind of relatable to my situation out in Ohio, where I'd have to, and that's where some of the lyrics like your mom always thought I was a drinker, but if I was sober she'd hate me anyway. Kind of like that sort of thing. It was just, there might have been some truth to some of the lines. But ultimately, I was just writing a story that I enjoyed telling. And it's always fun to have a shocker involved, too.
Right. So it's fun because you listen to it, you start wondering what exactly is going on in the basement, and then by the end, you get it. So that's brilliant. So anyone listening, if Steve invites you to his basement, for God's sake, don't go down.
That's funny, because this past weekend, my girlfriend and I, we were planning on fixing up the basement.
Don't do it! It's funny that you keep mentioning Johnny Cash, because one of the interview questions I wrote down was that your music has a Johnny Cash kind of feel to it.
Well, does it? I don't ever know. Yeah. It's funny because I don't like country music.
Right.
I make fun of it. The modern country music I do, but I love to sit down and listen to the stuff from the 50s and the 60s. Not for long doses, because it still has that the country twang that just instant headache to me.
Right.
But that's just my opinion. But a lot of it too, I can't help it because Social Distortion got that same. Those years of listening to Social D, I broke away a little bit and started listening to a little bit of Johnny Cash. When I formed my band, my dad was a college DJ. At where he went to college, and he's got a huge collection of 45s. And when I started my band the second time around, when I started Forgotten Nobody the second time around, he surprised me with an extra vinyl of Folsom Prison Blues.
Oh, nice.
Or Live at Folsom Prison, I should say. And I listened to that song, and or that whole album, and I just soaked it in. And I'd go out drinking with the boys and come home heartbroken because I couldn't find a girl, and I'd sit at the bottom of my stairs and I'd switch out albums. Johnny Cash, Live at Folsom Prison, and then my grandfather's gospel quartet from the 50s. Just together, because one was like, I'm getting rid of my demons, and the other one was coming by with a sweeper, sweeping them back up.
Right,
what I mean?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the last song, the Heartsick in the Basement song, I hear a Johnny Cash influence in all your stuff, but especially that one, that's something I could totally hear him doing.
Well, that's funny because, he was the one that taught us that it's okay to write a murder song.
Right. Exactly.
At least in my eyes.
Right.
I'm sure it's been done many, many times. But that's the funny thing about that, because when I actually wrote that song, I had no Johnny Cash influence whatsoever at the time.
Subconscious.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. It's hard to say.
I think that's what happens usually with most songwriters is they just subconsciously pull from all their influences to create their own thing.
And for the most part, that one sounds different than a lot of my songs. I mean, I try to write songs that are different than one another.
Sure.
And when I go through a period of time not producing another song, it's usually because I've tried 3 or 4 different times and I stop because they sound too much like something else that I've already written. And
Right.
I don't want that.
Right.
And, I might, and I guess that's going to tend to happen for an artist. And you hear that with so many popular ones.
Sure.
But no, I had no idea that was going to be a Johnny Cash relatable song.
Yeah, I really like that. It's also fun because it has kind of a sweet melody, and the lyrics are
I intended
so
to
dark
write it
and
like I was
great
writing a love song for somebody.
Yeah. That's
But
great.
well, because have you ever been so down after such a bad relationship that you fantasize about things and you don't really follow through?
Right.
But you're just like, man, I see this chick everywhere I go. I wish somebody would just knock her off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
I would never
relatable.
think that. Well, I would
Yeah,
never
that's
do that. But
relatable
like,
for sure,
but like
yeah.
you think about that, and
Sure.
that's one more reason why I wrote that song the way I did. I wanted to introduce it like, man, I'm so in love with this girl. But her new love's a vendetta to me.
Right.
And as the song goes on, I like creep in little lines here, like, yeah,
Right.
here, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
And then at the end, it's like, hey, guess what, everybody? Here's what happened.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Do you prefer playing acoustic to like plugged in?
Well, I enjoy doing what I do now, the acoustic electric sound.
Right.
I love just walking up, plugging into a PA and going at it. Did I enjoy electric? Yes, but there were so many things that were a pain in the butt with playing electric. And plus, I'm by no means like any, I'm not a solo player a lot, and a lot of people tend to think that if you're going to play an electric guitar, that's what you should do. At least the layman, you know what I mean?
Right.
I love what I do because it's what I started with. It's what I'm most familiar with. Even whenever I was in the electric punk scene, or so to speak, rock and roll, whatever you wanted to call us, I wrote all my songs on an acoustic. And so it was just natural for me to fall back into place with that whenever the band wasn't around anymore. And there were some things that happened too, that I wasn't playing music for a while. And was going through a relationship that ended up really bad in 2010. It was like a total failure and a total, like, just not on my part, just a destruction. And a friend of mine, 2 buddies of mine died of cancer. I shouldn't say 2 buddies. A buddy I grew up with from the time we were 3, neighbors, always running around in the neighborhood together. He died of colon cancer at age 30. Another friend's dad, who was my parents' neighbor, and his back neighbor, if you know what I mean, they lived on opposite blocks of each other. He died a month before of cancer. So it was just a bad year, and I wasn't going to play out. And a buddy of mine talked me into it. He said, hey, I formed a band, and they were called Paul and Athena. They played for a little while in the Pittsburgh area. They were really an interesting sound, and I liked them a lot, but they didn't like what they did. You know what I mean? So it was one of those things that they didn't want to do it anymore. And I'm sure there was some internal stuff, but that's beside the point. When my friend died and I went through all that, and my other buddy who was starting this band told me that Forgotten Nobody had influenced him to start a band, I thought about it long and hard, and he said, well, I'm having a, and I know that it's not chronologically correct and in the correct order, but with all that going on, my friend at the time was dying. He hadn't died yet. I just was so sad, and I couldn't believe that life was so miserable. And here's another friend kind of pulling me out of that darkness, saying, come play some music, I loved your stuff. And he said, I'm having a house party, think about it. I said, when? He said, tonight. I said, okay, I'll think about it. I don't know if I have any music to play or anything. It's been so long since I played by myself. I went out to Guitar Center right after that conversation and bought this guitar right here, and I've been playing it ever since. It was one of those things where I sat down and I was in a room all by myself, and I said, I can't live this way.
Yeah.
I have to play music again. And so I've written a couple songs related to those situations and things like that too.
Nice. How would you describe your sound? Can you describe your sound?
I don't know. I mean, I want to write songs that people enjoy. I want to write songs that people can sing to, and occasionally I see him singing some lyrics here and there. I want to be noticed for. Oh, well, there goes my phone. I must need to put on deodorant or something. But I forgot to turn that off. I apologize.
That's okay.
I don't know what I am. What I can. Nobody really. I can't describe what I leave it up to everybody else.
Right.
If you want to say, I have some people tell me that I sound like Rise Against my voice. I have some people tell me Johnny Cash, Social Distortion. I've gotten some strange ones like. Oh man, who was the band that did Breakfast at Tiffany's a couple years ago, 10 years ago or so?
Yeah.
Deep Blue something or something like that.
I can't even think of the name. Yeah.
I probably nailed it on the head there, but but like I've heard a lot of different things, and I say, well, Neil Diamond. I never even grew up listening to Neil Diamond, and people have said. My friend who got me out to play that one night, he said, "Yeah, this guy's a good cross between Neil Diamond and Social Distortion." I'm like, what? What is that?
You do have a deep voice like Neil, I guess.
Hey, it's all in the in the eye of the beholder, you know.
I think the more the better. That means that you just an amalgamation.
Absolutely. Hey, you know, I don't care what I sound like as long as it's good and people like it.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. So, what's coming next for you? You told me you're working with RJ maybe to record. Or these songs you gave me going to be on the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm planning a 4 or 5 song EP. It's been in the works for a while, mainly because, like I said, life happens. I have a regular job. I have family. I do a lot of things in between playing shows and just trying to have a life of my own. It's hard and it's hardly coming together. But I'm hoping that very soon that it starts happening. I plan on having an EP called The Demons in My Heart's Home. And it's off of the spin of that one lyric in Some Sort of Sacrifice. I alone fight the demons in my heart's home. And I plan on, because a lot of these songs are like that. They're the demons deep down inside. And I know that's such a cliche thing for musicians, but that's literally what these are to me.
That is what it is,
And, you know, I've got some good songs and I've got some bad songs. And I've, you know, like as far as dark and feeling.
Right.
But, you know, that's what they all are. They're demons and you got to get them out.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping to come up with that pretty soon. And I'm not doing a full band experience because I owe it to the people that have been coming out to listen to me raw by myself to give them what they've been hearing. Maybe down the road, I've got some things planned. Well, not necessarily. I'm getting some opportunities that are coming up that maybe if I need to, maybe I'll call on some guys and form a full band for a show here and there and see what happens from there. But
nice.
But that I've got some shows coming up actually. The 22nd of August, I'm playing at the Stack Hookah Lounge. I guess it's a new venue in the Greensburg area. I'm in and out of the Keynote Cafe all the time. Right. Jill Sorrells down there has me down there all the time. Right. What else? I had something else going on and I can't think of right now. But I'm always doing something. And when someone said, that's the best part about being a solo acoustic guy. Hey, can you play tonight? Yeah, what time? 8? Sure, I'll be there.
Right.
I might not even dress for it, you know?
Yeah. And all you have to worry about is you. You don't have to worry about getting other band members together.
Right. There was nothing more frustrating than getting a good show that I wanted to play and people just not being able to do it.
Yeah. Are you planning on maybe doing any tour in the future?
Well, I do mini tours here and there. I had some connections in Ohio where... well, I shouldn't say many tours. There are shows where I left the state. I shouldn't even say that, but I plan on doing things like that. And I was planning a mini tour, like a weekend gig or something like that in the tri-state area. But 1 or 2 venues fell through, and so it's just a matter of playing that pick up the pieces type game and seeing where else we can go. Would I do it? Yes, in a heartbeat. I've got to find the time though. I mean, I've got a regular day job. And because you still have to work, I don't care what anybody says. I've got a regular day job, and but yes, if something promising were to occur, I want the pieces to fall in place. Though I want the album first, so that I have some things to sell. I've got some T-shirt ideas, things like that, for if I ever get merch. But it's all kind of got to work its way into place. Right. And sometimes other things happen that are out of your control and they just happen. You got to just pick up where you're at and go. You
That's
know?
true. Yeah. What's the best way for people to hear your stuff? Are you on SoundCloud? Or?
I'm not on SoundCloud because I'm going to wait until I get this album done first. But I have recordings on Reverb Nation, Reverb Nation / FN Steve Hawk, the FN for Forgotten Nobody. Okay. Because when I originally started doing this, I was going to be a Forgotten Nobody acoustic. But I just decided to take my own name with it because I thought, I had enough people tell me it was a decent stage name. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, well, that's my real name. So
yeah, that is a great stage name. It's your real name, too. That really works out.
But, yeah, so what were we talking about? I kind of lost track.
People finding your music.
Oh, yes, Reverb Nation. I love Facebook. You can get a hold of me on there, facebook.com/ Steve Hawk Music, all capitalized. Well, not every letter, but the Steve, the S, the H, and the M, Steve Hawk Music, all capitalized. Okay. I will be getting some. I'm planning on getting my an official webpage together. I'm on Twitter, effing Steve Hawk.
Okay. Okay.
But Twitter to me is just, I don't really use that a lot. You can't hear too much music there anyway.
Right.
But the best place to hear the music is Reverb Nation.
Reverb Nation.
I've got some videos there, other interviews that I've done, live performances, things like that. But I'm on YouTube. Search my name on YouTube too. Okay. There's a guy out west. His name's Steve Hawk. He's a trumpet. He plays the trumpet in a band. So if you get a guy playing trumpet, that's totally not me. Totally not me. I have people. I have that popping up all the time. But
oh wow.
You can. I've done all sorts of in my living room stuff and on stage. Hard Rock Cafe, Club Cafe. I mean, I'm all over YouTube.
Cool.
So you can check that there too.
All right, great. Thanks, Steve.
Oh, Mickey, it's been a good time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Take me to the basement. Let's make those begging eyes close. Listen for the footsteps that tell me I've got to go. Don't worry, don't worry. Your mother will never know.